Greetings, fellow armchair Imagineers! Tiki here!
And Blue Dragon 5.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we find ourselves on the cusp of Disney's big venture into the world of streaming, even courting a war in the process, we thought it'd be nice to stay up to date on the ever-growing catalog and rule on what's a must or a bust on Disney Plus. And tonight we're talking Into the Unknown, the making of Frozen 2. All right. Oh boy, Dragon. So I am not going to be a popular guy with this podcast in general, folks, because this is a very popular movie that Dragon and I, rather infamously, Dragon, I'm sorry if you're going down, if you're going down on the ship with me, my friend. I know you stand on the ship. Frozen 2, redeeming qualities to be sure, but Dragon and I, is two grown-ass adult men, one of them pushing my 30s, didn't quite work for me.
They're gonna make it all depressing.
Well, I'm just saying it wasn't necessarily made for us. We're not necessarily the target demographic, so.
Well, if the target demographic are people who like the first movie, in that case, we are the target demographic.
All right, well, fair enough. If the target, anyways.
Anyway.
So, yeah, the first movie, Dragon, we definitely were on board with that fan base for a while. I mean, I do think the fan base got out of hand, but I think the fan base was there for a reason. As this documentary illustrates, a lot of people were touched by the original Frozen in a lot of ways. And Dragon, I mean, say what you will about Let It Go being overplayed as hell, and it has been, but I still vividly remember sitting in that theater Thanksgiving Day 2013, watching Let It Go for the first time and thinking, like, my God, this is a new circle of life. This is a whole new world. You know what I mean? Like, this is a new benchmark for Disney songs. This is going to be something that people will remember. Just the imagery, the lyrics, the vocals, just all of it coming together just really formed just a benchmark kind of watershed moment for 3D Disney animation going forward there. And then, of course, I think the rest of the movie is kind of just fine. Honestly, I think Frozen, the original Frozen, kind of peaked with Let It Go. It has its moments afterwards, but so Frozen 2, Dragon. Interestingly enough, one of the big things that we'll get into with this documentary is it had a lot of story problems for at least me. I'll let you speak for yourself on the issues you had with the movie, but it continued the characters just fine. The songs were really good, if not quite as memorable as the original songs, but the story was just kind of all over the place, Dragon. And suffice to say, with this documentary, this docu-series that we have now on Plus, yeah, story was kind of an issue with them, like, throughout the whole thing. So, Dragon, here's where I come down on this docu-series. I like it, but I think it's by far the weakest thing that we've gotten in as far as Disney Plus docu-series are concerned. And by that, I'm saying, the Imagineering story. I'm lumping prop culture in there.
Yeah, it's kind of one online though. It's not exactly it's I don't know where to put prop culture, but you know what I mean,
it's a docu-series, as far as I'm concerned.
I guess, but of a different. Sure, go on, keep going.
It has a little bit of an arc to it. I mean,
there's an arc. I love
it. It does have an arc.
I know, it just feels like a reality thing.
Here's the thing. Obviously, Imagineering story is like the highly produced, glossy, narration and everything. Like, that's like the prime documentary. That's like the primo kind of gold standard documentary.
That works, man. You can't go wrong with that. Works.
Exactly. And then on the other side of the coin, we have prop culture, which worked better as kind of like a personality-driven documentary, almost kind of like a slice of life mixed in with kind of like, hey, like, as you said, Dragon, it was like a really cool kind of show and tell, and that was kind of the format. And then when we get to Mandalorian and the Disney Gallery, what we had was, of course, Jon Favreau's famous Dinner for Five roundtable format. So you see what I'm getting here, Dragon? I'm a stickler for format when it comes to documentaries. I'm a stickler for structure. And Into the Unknown, the making of Frozen, it does have an arc, to be sure. There is drama there. There is a little bit of tension. But Dragon, basically, the way that it's presented is essentially fly on the wall. And I'm not a big fan of this style, and I'll get into it. First of all, I think this thing starts just painfully slow. I was bored to tears for the first couple episodes. I'll admit that. I think it ends strong, but it also ends on an awkward kind of like, look at us for this amazing movie we made when, many fans, myself included, it was a divisive movie, and I wish they would have at least addressed that a little bit more. Like, I wish they would have maybe owned up a little bit, like, hey guys, look, like we set out to achieve a vision and we achieved it, and it really resonates with the people that we want to resonate with. And, the man, honestly, Dragon, I wish they would have called us out on it a little bit more, honestly. Like, I wish they would have just owned, like, the man children that don't like this movie can fuck off because it's not made for them. So, I don't know. I just, that's one of the, it's almost kind of like a saving Mr. Banks conundrum of an ending, right? Where it's like, you're watching this whole documentary, and while it is a very successful movie, broke a ton of box office records, a lot of people love it, it's not nearly as universally loved as the first film was. So, Ringa is here in the chat. Hey there, Claude. Glad to see you. He says, honestly think Frozen should have gotten an animated series. And honestly, that's kind of like vaguely where we were going with Frozen. Not really, but I could have seen Frozen transitioning into an animated series between Frozen Fever and Olaf's Frozen Adventure, which I still stand is a very solid Frozen-related piece of content. It just happened to be released alongside Coco, and that killed its reputation. And then I would say even Frozen Ever After, the ride kind of expands on the lore just a little bit. It at least gives us an original story. So I do like that Disney keeps expanding the Frozen lore. So, Claude, I think an animated series would be cool.
I mean, we've seen potential in this too with, Once Upon a Time, Frozen Over, that whole thing. There's definitely potential for Frozen, and there are comics and stuff. Like, that's the point. Like, basically, there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of potential for going, like, the Tangled direction with Tangled series. There's definitely some potential there.
So here's the awkward thing, Dragon. There is so much goddamn love poured into this docu-series at the end of it, and I'm not going to fault them for being proud of the art that they made. Of course, it's a beautiful-looking film. The animation is fucking gorgeous, but I do have story problems with the movie that persist, and Dragon, there's a very key point in this docu-series. I think you know what I'm talking about, where it's like, okay, we fixed all the story problems, and I'm sitting here like, no, you didn't. So, you know what I'm talking about.
I know. Trust me, I know what you're talking about.
So, Dragon, I will throw it over to you. What is your inevitably controversial take on this thing?
All right, so of course, huge fan of the original Frozen, and coming out of Frozen 2, I was very much, again, I want to be clear again, I like Frozen 2, but I definitely don't love it, and without a hesitation, I would say it's definitely inferior.
I do want to give it a rewatch now that I've seen this. I will say that much.
Sure. That's the thing. Again, it definitely has some excellent. Again, I like it for the character continuation of one. Basically, this part now it just sounds like I'm going to echo everything you said, but in essence, I stand by it though. It's that because it's fitting into the category of like Frozen Fever and Olaf's Frozen Adventure in the character sense, and I like seeing the gang playing charades and kind of Elsa, Elsa's the initial part of Elsa's progression with the Into the Unknown of it all. And like fun, and they have some fun stuff like that. And, Kristoff. Well, again, not exactly storyline setting the world on fire. I feel for him trying to trying to propose, that sort of stuff. I'm feeling for the characters, and the animation looks fantastic. And there are a few songs that do cut the mustard. Not a lot, but namely Into the Unknown because it's catchy as all get out.
Oh my god, it really is, and that montage that they did at the end is appropriate.
My favorite gag in the movie, it's Olaf recapping the first Frozen. It's priceless. That's what I'm talking about. The movie does have its merits, but absolutely has its story problems in that. Basically, in the documentary, the docu-series definitely touches on this really well in that they were marketing this movie a little differently than things ended up kind of turning out to be, and that they were kind of shooting versus kind of what the end product was. That's the mixed message of Frozen 2 as a whole, where, again, They're putting out, okay, we're going to go serious. We're getting really ambitious yet, as Tiki's kind of alluding
you
to.
know that first teaser trailer had me hyped, bro.
And I love how they recapture that in this.
Right, for sure. Go ahead, though. Sorry.
This is my point. My point is, like, again, they're kind of setting a tone there, but what they're not realizing, I think the docuseries recaptures kind of well. Again, I don't think they fully delve into it as they should in the second half of things, but what we kind of capture is that, as Tiki was saying earlier on, again, it seems like they are pandering towards the kids, but by the same token, if you're going to pander towards the kids, then why raise the stakes with the teaser? And that's kind of that's the conflict of the movie, where story-wise they're trying to get ambitious, but if you want to placate things, again, the first Frozen movie, the thing that I think the thing that did so successfully well is it's very straightforward with the narrative. It's a very straightforward story that everybody can kind of get along with. You know, where this one, it's like, again, you're kind of splitting your audience, and that's where anyway. So my thoughts on this specifically. So Into the Unknown, making Frozen 2, but I was just making Frozen 2 because I keep wanting to say the making of Frozen 2, but apparently it's just making Frozen 2. So anyway, so of course, heavens no, it's no Disney Gallery Mandalorian, but it is impressive, and but anyways, it's impressive by the standards of which Disney Plus is making their docu-series. But again, comparatively, as you said, it's definitely it's at the bottom of the race. But also, bear in mind this too, Tiggs, to give it its fair due. Each of those series are something very uniquely different. This is the first time they're taking a stab at the making of docu-series versus the making of a series. This is the making of a film. This is, as you said, Fly on the Walls. They're very stylistically different things. We can't be too harsh on it in that regard. I mean, yes, I still would rank it low tier, but again, low tier with
Dragon. It's a very subjective stylistic thing for me. Fly on the Wall for me is like by far the least interesting documentary style. It takes me a lot to get interested in a Fly on the Wall documentary just because of the nature of it and how
I'd rather enjoy Fly on the Wall personally. I really do like Fly on the Wall, but I don't know if it's my favorite or anything.
It depends on the subject. It depends on the subject.
I'm sorry?
It depends on the subject. It won't get into it.
Yes. And that's the thing. It's that's the thing. I kind of care for it, but by the same token, again, I think it's anyway, so at the end of the day, what I think this docuseries did so well at the start, and what I was kind of telling you about, because remember, I told you about this, I was only into the first episode. So I think the smart call towards the beginning, especially, is that they're not going the puff piece, right? At least that's the impression you get at the start. Like it might not be entirely a puff piece. And basically, it's going the route, like, we're demonstrating the difficulty of doing, kind of the first, kind of Disney princess sequel with high stakes. Again, mainly combating the Frozen fan base, and that there's a lot of expectation on this. And of course, Frozen has taken a number of years, and now we're in kind of the last years or less of production. And it doesn't get into the bold aftermath that I was hoping it would. That the first part had me hyped to, like, oh god, I think they're going to go places with this. I think they're actually going to. I'm not expecting
unfortunately not.
Like, I wasn't foolish enough to think they were going to go balls to the walls with it, so to speak. That they were going to go full tilt. Like, yeah, well, here's like I would love it if they went there. If they just like point blank said, "Yeah, well, this was the response. This was the aftermath, and this is where we stand." I would have respected.
Like I said, it's not that Frozen 2 was by any means an unsuccessful film. It was just
heavens no,
critically and like fan wise a little bit divisive. It still made all the money.
Exactly, made all the monies. But again, it's let me this way. So again, while it didn't break into the bold aftermath, I was hoping it was. I mean, part of me was hoping it was realistic. I didn't expect to go full tilt with it. It was I think the end process is respectable nonetheless. But I think once we get into the second half, you can kind of see where they went wrong in kind of the structuring of their story and the making of the story. So all that aside, let's just dive right into it. Let's start with a year to premiere.
All right, really quick, Ringa says, Show Yourself and Lost in the Woods are my top 2 favorite songs from Frozen 2. Very, very solid contenders there, Claude. We'll talk about both those songs soon as they kind of mirror each other in this docu-series.
Absolutely.
My favorite song from Frozen 2 has honestly got to be, probably, I really like Some Things Never Change, Dragon. Some Things Never Change.
That's really interesting, because I want to say I could be misremembering this. I thought you were really against that song. We talked about Frozen 2.
No, I'm not against that song at all. No, no, no. I've always really liked it. I've
Huh?
always really felt like it's an exposition song to be sure, but it's bouncy and catchy as hell.
Huh.
But yeah, the objective answer to the best song on the Frozen 2 soundtrack, I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. Dragon.
Into the unknown.
But specifically,
Ah.
no. Okay,
What?
I thought you knew me better than this, Dragon. I thought you knew me better
But
than
you like
this.
this? You like this? Okay, what do you got?
Specifically, the Panic at the Disco cover, Dragon. I'm always going on about the Panic
Well,
at the
yeah,
Disco
what I
cover.
did essentially is as close as we're
The
going.
Panic at the Disco cover slaps, my friend. Anyways, all right, we're trailing off here. All right, let's get to episode 1. Thanks for your feedback, Claude. Okay, so first of all, Dragon, I will say that starting at not even a year out, technically, isn't it 11 months out?
Yes.
Yeah, it adds a good ticking clock. That was smart to not start from like, all right, we're conceptually developing, what the skeleton of the story. It's like, no, it's like things are on the move. Like they've got the skeleton of the story worked out. They've got a tone that they want to go with that's going to shift. They're just starting to get working on the song. So I think this was a very smart way to kind of like jump into the middle of the production cycle here.
Yeah, because here's the thing, and this is where the things really grab me in an interesting way. They've had 3 years to figure it, roughly 3 years to figure out the film and figure out all the bones and everything you just mentioned there. But what's so amazing, what we really showcase really well here is that there's still not a lot done. Yeah, there's like only like when we kind of by the end of it, I forget if it's in this part or the next part, we say like 20. Oh, it's the next part. Where the next part we kind of say like 25. Basically, we get to 25% of the animation is done with like less than 11 months to go. That's terrifying.
And I will admit that throughout the whole docu-series, basically, I mean, by the time we get to the final episode, it's a lot of patting yourself on the back. I will give it that. But the first 5 episodes, Dragon, is a little bit of a nail biter. I'll give it that much. I mean, obviously we're not sitting here being like, oh man, I hope it premieres on time. I don't, it better not get delayed. That would be bad. Obviously we know what's going to happen. We know the ending to this story, but they still do a good job of kind of like building the suspense in the room. And I guess that is one of the good elements of the fly on the wall style that I'll have to give it, is giving it the genuine moments of tension.
Yeah. So, of course, we have, honestly, within the docu-series, we kind of have, here are our main characters. Of course, we have Jennifer Lee, very big, Chris Buck, the producer, Peter DeBeccio, and the songwriting couple, Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez. Those are kind of our main characters for the piece. And also, so we establish, that we meet the story trust, and that's kind of these are the guys who are going to rake them over the coals for certain things. And this is where again a lot of the intrigue kind of comes into the piece. Where okay, we're as you do in the animation process, especially when you're making a movie, you're going to have, well, of course, obviously a knockoff of the Pixar brain trust. Let's make no mistakes there. Okay, Pixar did it first and did.
Oh God. Well, to be fair, the Pixar brain trust was probably already a ripoff of the Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg thing. So.
Well, I mean, that's like they have. Then you go back to they have like the Rat Pack. I mean, let's not split hairs. I'm talking about like
Dragon. What I'm saying is that nothing in this world is original. All right.
Fine. Just let me have this, man. Let me do the Pixar brain trust. Anyway.
All right.
Okay. The point being, in the kind of the trust sessions here, they're not. We kind of set the stage. We kind of plant the flag that we're not shying away from the story process and using the feedback. And in a way, what we're doing here is intentionally or at least non-combatively, what we're establishing is that Frozen 2 was a hard story to crack, and we get a taste of how things on the whole, and this is what gave me the hope for the whole thing, is that we get a sense that things didn't come together. Things didn't come together quite right, and that sets the tone of okay, now we have an interesting story to tell. We're okay. They're not, at least while they're not probably going to spell it out by the end, they're at least going to say throughout the process that this is a difficult production. So what it's doing for us, for you and me, and kind of the people who weren't super crazy about Frozen 2, but at the very least in my case, a little disappointed by Frozen 2. Like I wish it was the first one, or at least I wish it was like better than the first one as it was kind of hyped up to be.
I wish it was like actually epic in tone, like it was hyped up to be. That's one thing.
Sure. My point is like it's what I'm so fascinated by is like it's voicing it in a non-combative way that we like I'm a part of me is like hoping like, I wonder if that by the end they're going to say, well, we have the movie we ended up with, we're proud of it, and if you don't like it, I mean, you saw in the documentary, we did our best, we put our heart and souls in this, is what we came up with. And basically, I'm getting ready to applaud them by the end of this thing. If they can tell the story quite right, it could be like, oh my god, they're going to say that, look, we bit off a little bit more than we can chew. The fan base, this has never happened before. We're doing something. We're in untested waters. Like there never has been a Disney Princess sequel done theatrically. Because Frozen was such an unprecedented success, we're all in deep water, and that's what I'm saying. I love that this docuseries in the first episode, they're kind of saying it's arming me with information I didn't have. It's filling in these great story blanks of what went wrong with the story in Frozen 2. And now we're kind of getting the information. I thought that was great.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that moment that I kind of alluded to, Dragon, I feel like that's the moment where you and I both kind of were like, oh, it's not going in that route, is it?
And the moment that crystallized everything for me, Tiki, for the whole thing, the biggest kind of plot line of the whole docuseries is what they hit on in the story trust, is that the biggest example of if things not coming quite together is this moment where they're all in the story trust, and basically the other season directors are basically speaking to, who's the voice? And then Jennifer Lee and crew say, well, we're not 100% on who the calling voice is, which if they don't know... Yeah. If they don't know 3 years in,
we see a lot of passion from these people, but that's a problem. That's a problem.
And again, because
that inherently speaks to the issue of Frozen 2 on a whole, I think.
And it's not just like they didn't figure out this one thing. That one thing, as they speak to later in the thing, is that the two-part story of Frozen, the way they have it currently, is that Elsa goes from point A to the Snow Queen. The Snow Queen essentially is the big, like when she becomes essentially the fifth element, no pun intended. When she does that, that's her arc. And if you don't know what gets her there within this whole calling voice, the big if you don't know who the is, you're in trouble. So that's what really hooked me on the thing. Like, oh my god, they didn't know that at the start. I gotta see where this goes, where they end, how they, and that again, that kind of gives you like the piece, like maybe this song kind of broke the movie in many respects. This is kind of, because again, everything does the biggest head scratcher for me in Frozen. All revolves around that scene. All revolves around the whole show yourself big payoff where she randomly gets frozen. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything with that in this docuseries, which bugs me. It's like, why don't
we didn't hear anything about that. Not at all. We didn't hear anything about Anna's controversial choice. Yeah. Which I thought was one of the big issues. But
you see what I mean? Like, while we're doing some great stuff and kind of like shedding light on, we're also still like we
didn't even talk about Anna's fucking decision to drown Arendelle for the sins of the past, Dragon.
Yeah, it's the top.
Nary a mention.
The point being, they're hitting the tip of the iceberg, but again, there's a lot below the surface we really could be getting to. That again, basically,
that is the thing in Frozen 2 that I walked to the theater shell-shocked about, Dragon. I mean, I was even more shell-shocked about, like, well, if you're going to commit to that choice, then do it. Don't just have Elsa right in there on Deus Ex horse magic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Just Dragon. You know what I'm realizing?
What?
Frozen 2 has some of the same flaws as Legend of Korra Book 2.
Well, that's a bigger
good setup. It's got a good setup. It's got some good character progression. But by the end of it, it just becomes Deus Ex Machina after Deus Ex Machina after Deus Ex Machina.
Well, I'm glad you economized it when you do it like that. Yeah, I can get on board with that. Yeah, pretty much. All right. So again, we've put into perspective, the pressure. We put in perspective, like they're under new pressure. Also, you got to remember, Jennifer Lee. And the other thing kind of it showcased to me is that I didn't consider before is that, another thing kind of goes wrong with this production in a sense. Again, not like obviously makes money, it's successful, but it kind of story-wise, what kind of might hurt things is that Jennifer Lee is halfway through the production as Disney then makes her the new CCO, the new Chief Creative Officer. About that. And remember, when she becomes the new Chief Creative Officer, that means she has to oversee all the Disney productions, not just Frozen, which initially her focus was all on Frozen 2. Honestly, I think it's a two-part thing. I think that's the dagger in Frozen 2, is that her focus was divided. And we've seen this story a couple of times in other anime movies where the head cheese is kind of divided into other things, or they're a little busier. Again, the chief creative officer position, takes focus away, and the end product. If you were in charge of that product beforehand, or then are taking over that project while your focus is a little divided, the end result is going to suffer. And I think that's why we have some of our story issues there, because halfway through the production, she probably didn't figure, I'm going to figure out the voice. I'm like, what? I have this job now? Okay.
Oh God. Right.
So I think that's what happened. So again, I admire this doc showing chinks in the armor like this and figuring out the blanks. But again, I just wish that I like that we scratched the surface. Maybe we could have scratched a little deeper, but maybe I'm asking for the moon. I don't know.
Next episode?
I'm gonna bullet point like Dena Menzel visits, which is kind of nice. Oh, the fan letter. We got to talk about the fan letter real quick.
You mean the hallway full of fan letters?
Yeah, the awesome.
The one in particular. Yeah.
I love the hallway full of fan letters, man. That's awesome.
I mean, there's a lot of really emotional moments with how the first movie connected emotionally with the fans, and that's definitely one of them. D23 was the other big one.
Oh yeah. So of course, Let It Go being kind of like the girl was kind of in trouble, and basically Let It Go kind of inspired her and kind of brought a little bit of light into her life, which is really quite moving. And the idea is when these guys are in the animation trenches and they're working long hours and they're like 11 months out, it's like, you know what? They need inspiration. They go to the hallway, man. That's awesome. So of course, the big thing that links us into episode 2 is Show Yourself has a lot of problems, and when the songwriters are basically calling them out at the end, when the Lopez's are saying the song never landed for us, that is the last thing you want to hear. And that, again, that's the hook for the next episode right there, that we're overcomplicating it again. The song doesn't land. Like, oh God, what are they gonna do?
All right, episode 2. Yes. Back to the drawing board.
Which again, great title.
Okay, Dragon. Here's my big thing. Basically episodes 1, 2, and 3, I don't really think. Oh man, it's interesting because episode 1 does lay some good groundwork and foundation that doesn't really get all that paid off, to tell you the truth. I think episode 2 and 3 in particular, Dragon. We see so much footage. I'm just going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, folks. I apologize. We see so much footage, so much raw fly-on-the-wall footage of just like, the voice actors coming in, doing the songs, the Lopez's interacting with them, fixing up, like, oh, do that again, do that a little higher, do that a little lower. Dragon, I just, by the end of this, I just fast-forwarded those parts because it's like, I get it. Like, those segments really drag this down for me, especially in episodes 2 and 3. Because it's not that I don't appreciate the process, but my God, you need to have some editing on it. It really dragged.
I hear you on that, but I prefer, like, I forget if it's now or later on, but I like when we do like Josh Gad's, like we do a session with Josh Gad, which is pretty fun. But here's the thing that really got presented to me with all the focus on the songwriters is that, yeah, they actually have a surprising amount of power within the Frozen sequel, given that, again, the success of the first movie. And of course, like, it's not Frozen without the musical component, apparently. They held a lot of power in this sequel, which again, they kind of had to kind of stop the director over the Show Yourself of it all.
I really like how it's like a friendly tug of war between the Lopez's and the and Disney Animation.
I think the funniest moment in the whole thing, I think one of the greatest moments of the song is when basically they're butting heads in a friendly way. They're butting heads, and they say, "Look, if you want to do a boring song like I Am Home, we'll do it." Just call it. That's one of the things Sean promised. Like, oh my God, calling him out like that. Like, if you want to do a boring song, I Am Home, sure, we'll do it. Singing Glacier.
Oh God.
That's the thing. Basically, that's the thing. Because they didn't know who the voice was. Here's the thing. I think technically that is the answer, though. It really is a singing Glacier when you think about it. If you really think about it, they have no idea. They still have no idea who the voice is. It's kind of the singing Glacier. That's the only answer that makes sense.
Just anyway.
Let's see. So Jonathan Groff, he got a song.
Jonathan Groff was entertaining. I mean, it's all good stuff. I just think the footage itself could have been trimmed, man. That's my point.
It
I
was
just
funny
think
seeing them
editing
record
wise,
the dialogue, though.
no, you're not wrong. It was fun, but I'm just saying editing wise, like across the board, especially in these first couple episodes, I just I'm not. I don't even know what you would replace it with. But I don't know. The pace of this thing just really fell off. Again, that might just be because of my my aversion to Fly on the Wall. How I really prefer like a narration or more talking
Tiki's new
heads.
nickname, the Fly Swatter.
Oh God. All right. Anyways.
Okay, well, one thing I want to get in there before we move on, I guess, is that with the Jonathan Groff section of all the episode telling you back to the drawing board, obviously is a reworking of the idea, and I think the theme of the episode is the altering an idea to fix a problem, which obviously is the main crux of the whole thing. Is like we got to fix show yourself, and what we do is like we don't immediately link to okay, back to the show in the thick of fix and show yourself. What they do is they demonstrate what they're going for with show yourself with the Jonathan Groff thing. Like first movie didn't give much of a song. He was satisfied with it, which I love. That he was satisfied. Like, hey, I got a little, little reindeers are better than people. That's all I need. But
right.
Basically, we demonstrate they had original. Here's the thing. I actually, when I got the Frozen 2 DVD, I saw the bonus features and I saw a bunch of the deleted stuff they left on. And a lot of the deleted stuff was pretty good, by the way. It's the thing they left out so much. Some of it probably should have been in the movie, if I'm being frank, but they don't really delve into that here. But the point being, like, originally Christoph was like he wanted to propose in a really cool way, and that's what his original song was. Like, I don't know, knew he was going to propose.
Just the animatics for that song were really impressive.
And it's that whole sequence, by the way, if you ever look into it, Tiki, that whole sequence, it's a really cool song too. It's really well done, really well boarded. It's like it's a fanciful scene. It's a little off brand from Frozen, but it's cool. Sure. Anyway, the point being, we kind of take that and we rework it here to the '80s love ballad send up. So it's we're seeing an example of what they're going for, which I thought was really kind of clever storytelling wise with kind of how they're laying out this little kind of little arc within the doc.
I really like I don't think it's in this episode. We see it later on, but I'll bring it up here so I don't forget about it. I really like how Jonathan Groff does the voice of each one of the reindeer and does each one in a different pitch, and they all kind of sound cartoony, like when you play them separately, but when you play them together, it actually really sounds harmonious.
Yeah,
that's crazy, and that just kind of speaks to Jonathan Groff's vocal range, man.
All right, so let's see. Also, so now we're at 9 months. And
by the way, where are we on Jonathan Groff's spit alert, Dragon? Any spit action going on with Jonathan Groff?
He had Gatorade. I did not see any spittle.
He did emphasize, like, I've got a lot of drinks here. I'm going to keep my mouth. All right, anyways.
All right, so yet again, mind-bending being 9 months out with only 22 to 25% of the movie animated, which is that sounds crazy to me.
All right, episode 3.
All right, so the song yet again.
Yeah, Dream to Holland. Go ahead.
So yeah, so of course the song is on the the cusp of being cut out of the movie completely. But there's like a last little wavering thing of hope for the poor animator. Like I really want to do some dazzling stuff with this song. Don't cut the scene. Every animator's worst nightmare is having their scene cut, which I love. We kind of have a moment where we have like the montage of all the cut sequences.
Yeah.
So yeah, Journey to Holland. So of course this is kind of they're at the penultimate screening phase. It was like before the premiere they only have like 6 screenings, and they're like at the 5th out of the 6 screenings. And now DeVecchio here, the producer, he's coming in early. I love the relatable thing. The guy comes in early. Why did I do this to myself? I'm gonna be waiting all day. It's gonna be like waiting for the axe to fall.
I do like that we have kind of these screenings kind of framing everything. That's a nice touch. That's a good way to go about it.
There's a director in the story. I want to say the guy's going to do the Ray of the Dragon movie coming up. That guy, he calls him out on treading water story-wise, which again, as you and I know.
Again, yeah. Something that in the finished product.
Yep.
A little bit, not something that exactly got ironed out, guys. Sorry.
Again, I feel it's the first three episodes are full of all the potential of what this could have been. I really do.
Sure,
There's like
sure.
I basically like halfway through the fourth one onwards when we start to kind of lose that. We start to get kind of the stock place, mainly towards like 5 and 6. But anyway, so let's see. So oh yeah, with poor Sterling K. Brown. They cut. Yet another thing, he had a backstory song and they cut it.
I feel okay. Here's the thing, Dragon. This is hard to even like Sterling K. Brown. Yeah, like I feel bad for him because he seems so enthusiastic and he gets like nothing in the finished movie.
And what they did.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
What they did is they basically reduced his song, and again, they reduced it down to one. He has one really great moment of acting, but again, that's all he gets though. That one great moment, like my father, basically mentions his father once, and it was always like a really great performance of Sterling K. Brown, other than like kind of the comedy reactions around the Olaf sequence, and that's all he's got.
Okay, even more tragically, Dragon is fucking Ryder, man. That one kind of got to me a little bit because, of course, Ryder, named after the co-director's dead son. And once again, he gets like one little bit with Christoph and he kind of disappears from the movie. And they're all hyping him up where it's like, oh, this character Ryder is going to like, it's going to be like the embodiment of our son. And he's going to live on through this great new character we've created. And I don't want to take that away from them at all. God, no. I mean, if that's the power the character has to the creators, then by all means, they own that. But it just, the character, it's a really messy situation, Dragon, when half of these new characters that they're hyping up in this docu-series get left on the cutting room floor. And honestly, once again, maybe something, especially in Sterling K. Brown's case, that could have heard a little something about, could have dug a little deeper into.
The Ryder,
how do you feel about getting so much of his stuff cut out?
Yeah, the Ryder buck of it all is a kind of the perfect symbol for the docu-series. In that, again, it's something that it made me think about something different because you and I, we were speculating, joking, like, "Hey, I wonder if it's like a little nod to Flynn Rider, eh?" And of course, now I feel horrible about it. Like, oh God, what do we say?
Right.
But and that's the thing. So I basically like this documentary just kind of doing on the whole is that again, I do feel I feel a new respect for Frozen 2. And again, like you say, you want to go back and check it out. So now knowing what you know now, that's what I'm saying. Like, and in essence, I respect it, but yeah, it doesn't fix anything, which is the frustrating thing. Where like we've added layers to something that is overlooked and overlooked and underdeveloped character. But again, it's a loving nod. How does your heart not melt for that? It doesn't fix it, but it adds layers. It doesn't fix it, but it adds layers of consideration, which you got to respect. Like, I didn't consider it that way, which is like, it made you feel something, which ultimately is kind of what Frozen 2 is. It makes you feel something, but it doesn't make you think something.
And all right, good call.
Also, I love Jennifer Lee's Cinderella thing. I love like the idea she reveals like she was she was bullied as a kid, and then basically she would play Cinderella, and she related to Cinderella in that regard. I thought that was kind of a beautiful little bit for her. And of course, all of this linked into the whole the Next Right Thing song, which again, I'll admit, all of this learned about Ryder Buck of it all, and how basically the Next Right Thing I have newfound respect for. It was like that was a really.
I do too. Like that's one of the songs that just was kind of a watch for me in theaters.
Yeah. Also, just because it's in. I hear you. Just because it's in the episode title, we should also talk about it. And the research trip out of Holland, which is really cool. The fact that when they went to the actual glaciers.
Really cool, and seeing Jennifer Lee's reaction to the glaciers and like having it, like it really is Elsa's homeworld, if you will.
And again, I get what they were going for. I get what they were going for with the whole show yourself with the moment like this. Where okay, the idea is that the glaciers and the cool thing about them is that these glaciers are thousands of years old with histories and answers that you find when you go there. And of course, that kind of reflects Elsa's quest there, Elsa's whole thing, and potentially the whole payoff of show yourself. Where again, you go to Holland, you find out about yourself, and of course, she shows herself via the whole lot.
Sure.
But again, I get it. That's the thing. I think that's what they're going for. Again, does it land? Not so much, but I get a little bit of respect creeps in there, Yeah.
All right. Okay, what's next? Oh, well, obviously,
Episode 4.
episode 4. Big changes. I have it like right in front of me. Why'd I ask that? Jesus Christ. I'm losing it.
Yeah, that's why I was
All
wondering,
right.
like, what is he waiting for?
I was like,
Okay, so
waiting
now
for
we're
you to
5
cue me
months
up. I'm
out.
sorry. Yeah.
We're at
So
5 months out.
This is the point where we reach, shall we say it, Dragon? Shall we call it the Great Divide?
Yes, the Great. No, let's pass it. No, it's the Great Divide.
And
Sorry,
nothing important happened.
Okay, so importantly, so we're 5 months out, and 60% of the movie is finished. At this point, 60% of the movie is completed.
Yeah. And alas, this is the first public screening, right?
Well, this is the trailer mode. This thing starts really well. We have the big trailer drop mode. This is a mode we all
Okay, the big
to.
trailer drop again is kind of going like it's kind of building towards our like, okay, I vividly remember being in this headspace of being incredibly hyped for this movie based on the trailer, based on the imagery of Elsa trying to ascend the wave. That is like instantly iconic imagery in my head. I wish it went to a more thematically relevant place in the finished film. And then just like in general, just the tone of the whole thing. It kind of had like a Kingdom Hearts vibe to it. And so I was kind of like, okay, what are they gonna do? Like, they basically acknowledged that the trailer was essentially cut together, not really still knowing what the finished film was gonna be.
I really love the ripple effect, and again, this kind of sets up. Again, this is not. I want to be clear. This is not an Anatomy of a Failure documentary, and there's no reality
No,
which is going to be that, because obviously not a failure, therefore it cannot be that thing. But I love like the seeds that are planted, where we see, like Josh Gad showing Kristen Bell the trailer, and then of course now we see the trailer, and of course like it's this big moment. Of course, the takeaways are this is like the fire being lit under the studio. You're 60% out there. You still got a screening coming up, and now the world knows. The world is hyped, and of a thing that was already hyped in the first place. It was hyped around the holidays, even. Now, like there is again, we've lit 100 candles under you. and just like seeing it premiere in New York to like the trailer premiere in New York to like the studio, just everything stops at the studio. Like, oh god, the trailer's playing. Yeah.
All right. And then we have the test. Yeah, we have the test audiences, right?
Yes.
So, Dragon, I'm sorry. This is where this is the point. This is like I can pinpoint the moment where I kind of start to lose interest in this thing. It's the point where they take the feedback. It's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. They're saying like adults still like it. And if you're going in a more adult route, then take that and run with it. Adults are into it. God damn it. But kids find it a little bit confusing, a little bit too complex.
So basically what they established is the kids love Olaf. The salamander's cute, tested the roofs, and I'll stand by that. That salamander was cool, man. I like that salamander. Anyway. And then
useless like all the other new characters, but sure, it was cool.
Anyway, so then of course the thing I'm sure Delia you know, when the turtles breathing through their butts gag tested through the roof as well.
Oh yeah, I love how that was just like a running thing. That was a right, like they were super proud of that.
And of course the problem, and they don't spell this out again. I can only infer this because unfortunately I wish they delved a little bit more into this because this was interesting. Is that the problem is the kids found the plot confusing. Of course, the end result that we know is that they really over-explain things in places. Now, on one hand, the better example, of course, is the Olaf scene, which I love, and that's how they simplify things and make it entertaining. That's great. Here's what's not great. Here's the
Olaf scene is really, that's not even really getting that much into the plot of the second movie. That's more just like a Louise recap of the first movie.
You're right. Now here's the thing. So that I'm just saying, out of like in terms of your exposition, basically kind of spoon feeding the plot. That's the best way you can do that. And again, you're right. It's not even the plot for the second, which is the plot for the first. It's basically how do they get caught up? Well, we get them caught up in an entertaining way. But here's the problem that I would have liked them to see, like maybe address a little bit more directly. But again, this way I can infer. Big problem scene for me, exposition-wise, in Frozen 2, is that really odd scene where Anna and Elsa, they find their parents' ship, And basically, Elsa does the little ice thing where she has this really cool like ice memory thing where she like basically like, kind of freezes these statues in time, which is cool. But by the same token, they go to the ship and they drowned, and they know that they drowned, and we have to basically spell out for the kids for the plot of it all.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I can only infer maybe I don't know this 100%. I can only infer with this whole like we have to explain the plot better to the kids and simplify things. Like okay, we need to establish that they're thinking about their parents. So what do? They actually make a statue of their parents to reestablish that they drowned. Which
So, Drake, and then it just becomes like I feel like the new characters weren't given as much of a chance to breathe, probably as a result of that. I feel like they might have been on the cutting room floor a little bit.
Yep.
And that's really a shame because I like conceptually I really like a lot of the new characters. We just did nothing with them. So yeah, this is really the point. And what bothers me about it, Dragon, what bothers me about it is that from this point on in the docu-series, when they're basically just like, aha, we've cracked the code. We have to dumb it down for the kids. And, well, Dragon is, as we keep reiterating, even though Frozen 2 is exposition heavy, I still don't really get how the fuck Anna gets to her decision to flood Arendelle by the end of the movie. I mean, that still is just like a baffling. It again, something that I really, I don't know. I'm trailing off on a tangent.
Okay, right. Okay. Also, just to hit this too, I think the next ones basically they get the notes here, then they do like the 6th screening along the lines of one of the next two, and then they say we have no problems after that screen. That's the moment you're real. That's where all your stuff.
Essentially, and I don't know.
Okay, well, the one thing I want to hit here again, this is because I've only seen something like this once in the awesome visual commentary to Ratatouille, where basically they have like these fun periodic interruptions where the animators talk about their cut shots, but Pixar they over dramatize and they make it really funny. Where it's like they pour out like a glass of wine for their shots. They show you. They basically have like a lot of hilarious over the top funerals for their shots that didn't make it as they show it to you on the DVD commentary. It's like the Nemo thing, really. They kind of stop it and they kind of put the clip up and go back. Anyway, now they basically we do kind of a dramatic version of here, which is also good. I'm just saying I love doing stuff like this where everything's put on storyline. I love the sense of dread. And this is what I'm saying. 4 is a mixed bag because you learn stuff, but again, 4 is still telling a compelling story. But again, just because it didn't go the way we wanted it to, it's still like okay, they're showing what went wrong, and then 5 and 6 feels like a puff piece. That's what really gets me. I think.
Yeah, pretty much.
First 3 episodes and mostly the 4th part, it still has like the dramatic storytelling. Okay, everything is going on story hold. We got 60% of the movie done, 40% left. You want to get across the finish line. Then we have to stop all animation. We got to figure out the story stuff. We got to cut sequences out. It's like, oh no, these poor animators! It's a bloodbath.
And then all of a sudden, it's just like, all right, we're good. All right, yeah, and that brings us to Race to the Finish. And honestly, Dragon, for a title like this episode really doesn't have all that much suspense in it.
Yeah, which that's basically, again, I can get behind this show when we get to
it's like, I can get behind, like, they work long hours, and that's, and I really respect people in the animation industry. I could never work those kinds of hours. I could never be that patient. Animation is not my industry. But, it's just kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's just the editing, but, like, again, Dragon, I think it really does boil down to that pinpoint moment of, like, they basically exclaim that, oh, this is really good now, we're not going to have any problems.
Yep, and again, they're still, even at this point, after they say that they've figured it out, that they have it in hand, yet again, they kind of also point out that they still don't know who don't know who Ada Holland is. They don't know who the voice is. Because here's the thing, because they're saying it's the mother, and basically at this point, after they have it all figured, and they play the sequence in part 5 here. So they play the sequence, I believe, like the finalized version of it, and okay, we see the mother pops up in the animatic as they're adding the animation and everything to it, and basically it's like I'm still left with the questions I am with the movie. Where is the voice Gale? Is like it's like Samantha? Like the little wind thing? Because again, like how is, if you really look at it, the mother was
right.
somehow magical, but she's not, and yet the voice is again. I think it's supposed to be the glacier, but by the same token, they're saying it. Why is the mother come? Basically, we need an excuse to have Evan Rachel Wood sing. That's kind of what it feels like.
And Evan Rachel Wood, I mean, my God, talk about someone who was hyped up and then they did nothing with her.
And again, except make her sing. It's pretty much like she's there for
Yeah.
the album and the opening.
Yeah,
She's there,
exactly.
yeah, that's a lullaby. She's there to sing.
Oh man, we're not making any friends with this podcast, are we, Dragon?
Hey, look again. I'll talk
Really
I will talk up all the great things about Frozen 2 any time, folks. I will, because there are great things about the movie. Again, Into the Unknown is a fantastic sequence. Again, the reindeer sequence. The 80s ballad, if you will. God, I'm always Lost in the Woods. That's anyway. All right. So,
the one thing about episode 5 that I really did appreciate was the D23 stuff. That was the stuff that probably got me the most emotional.
I love the fans, the super fans who remember, Tiki, just based on the trailer. That's all they had at that point. They made flawless costumes based on the trailer.
I know. That's devotion, man.
Here, I had a personal moment too. It wasn't for D23. That was for a really silly bit in your eyes, I'm sure. But it's the shredding bit. The shredding bit kind of got me in my heart of hearts, where it's like, oh, look at all the stories, all the storyboards being shredded by the production.
Oh no, I hear you. That got me too. I mean, it was basically a great kind of visual representation of like, hey, look at all this hard work. Just all these hours upon hours upon hours of passion and artistry, just literally being shredded before our eyes.
Now, mind you, folks, obviously in the story process, they usually destroy this stuff, especially back then they destroyed this stuff. By the same token, like, now we're in a period of time where we kind of celebrate and we laud it, and it's like, I'm sure some of it made into like an art of book, I'm sure, but still, I've tracked down some of these in my time from the Disney studio. I have. I mean, well, let me rephrase that. My point is, like, at Comic-Con, I've bought artwork that was from the Disney studio that essentially are some of these storyboard pages, like from The Legend of Tarzan and stuff, and Kim Possible. I've owned some of this stuff, and again,
Sure.
It's having that experience. Like when you see it, this was like, oh man, like I got some of the survivors. Oh, it's like that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So then, of course, D23, big presentation of Some Things Never Change. Though it was so cute that Jonathan Groff had like a little plush Sven.
That was wonderful. Jonathan Groff, a consummate showman, even with the spit impact.
Yep, and of course they play Into the Unknown for the crowd, which again I like that we saw come together from the first parts. Like we saw that whole sequence come together. Of course, the namesake of the docu-series. That's cool. And here's my problem, Dave. I wonder if you feel the same way about this. I feel like 5, while a little dicey in terms of, as we said, we lose momentum as we go forward in the show, in the series. But even with 5, D23 could have been like the highlight they could have ended with if they maybe economized things, where D23 is like, that's like your thing. Maybe things didn't go well, but D23 was like what kind of charged the production. Like if you had something like that,
yes,
like, it would have been.
I see what you're saying here. Yeah.
If you don't have like a happy, if you don't have like a fully satisfying ending, that would be like the way of like an ending it on like kind of like a bit, almost like not a fully bittersweet note, but you know what I mean. It's like something like a little kind
of Bohemian Rhapsody note, Dragon.
Sure, there you go.
Like the the celebration before the tragedy.
Yeah. So basically, I think what they're getting is like this is kind of the second. I wish they didn't stress this enough in the last part, but what they're kind of setting up with the D23 hype of it all is that this gave all the animators a second wind. Like this gave them the creative second wind, which I think would have reactivated the whole race to the finish quality of it all, which I don't know. I think it kind of falls to the wayside because I think they kind of peaked at D23.
Yeah. All right, so that brings us to
6. The world awaits.
All right, I'm just going to be blunt with you, Dragon. This is a puff piece. This is a 28-minute puff piece.
It is. It is. Yes.
I mean, the one thing that does get to me is it's nice to see like all the all the cast and crew coming together and being this big family and everything. And but that I don't know. It's just like this whole thing is just like, hey, let's pat ourselves on the back and acknowledge what a good job we did. We're not going to acknowledge the somewhat mixed reaction from both fans and critics.
And also,
we're just going to. He's going to acknowledge that it made all the monies and just move on.
Even the making of stuff also gets a little stock too, because we do stuff that's in every making of, like the sound design, the full. I'm not trying to take points away from that, but I'm just saying, it's like, why save it for the last installment? Why do we sprinkle it in early?
That's kind of what I'm saying with that's what I was saying with the voice recording too, Dragon. I feel like the actual elements of the making of are all over the place, and I mean, frankly, we were pretty much spoiled with the Mando making of Dragon because that was very economized.
Now, again, to be fair, I mean, I know there is an actual reason for why they saved for last part. Because if they're going chronologically, then yeah, the sound design, the Foley would be what you do before the thing. So I get it. I'm just not exactly. It's kind of like it's like we're going to sound like big animation snobs. Like, we've seen it before. It's like, yeah, we've seen it before, but it's. Okay, so here's
kind of like it's kind of like in the late 2000s when you would go to a Universal Studios special effects show and it'd be like, did you know the actors use green screens?
So I admit I like there's like a tone setting moment at the start of this episode. I'm sure you liked it. So,
oh God!
It's kind of the ultimate self-congratulatory moment where they're constructing the sculpture for the lobby, which again is a cool looking thing. They got admit.
It's a cool structure. I'll admit that.
But also it's a kind of a symbol too. Like, yeah, we're down the wire, but you know what? We want to look good.
Hey, Dragon, sheer fucking hubris.
Okay, well I like that. There's one thing they added, and there's one thing they put in there. I really wish they lingered on this more. The editor really holds the key in the end to the whole thing. Which, knowing how Frozen 2 turns out, I wish there was like a little bit more like a dramatic kind of irony placed to. At the end of the day, the editor is the one who puts it all together. After you get everything in there, the editor is going to decide how your movie's going to be.
Well, at the end of the day, Dragon, Disney has final say. Let's be honest here. Okay?
Well, I mean, like the Disney-approved editor, that whole. But yeah.
No, but I'm just saying, like this isn't like we're not going to get some auteur editor who's going to make this into some think piece when Disney doesn't want it to be. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. Let's see. Oh, and then this is the moment. I'm sorry, T. This is the moment exactly. This is your big ranty moment. I already went through. You don't have to do it again. But it's like this is where they have the show yourself payoff. Where this is where they say that. This is the big moment where they say everything. We got the lab. I did an emergency screening and everything's great. The audience.
It's like, no, it's not, because clearly half the fan base is still very divided.
Oh, and again, it's like this is the moment where I'm saying, like, again, we don't address the random freeze, but you can't win them all, I guess. We can't win them all.
And again, I'm sorry I keep reiterating it, Dragon, but it was the thing that gave me the most shell shock in the theater. Why the hell does Anna just randomly decide that to save the day she needs to flood Arendelle?
Yep.
Not even mention. Not even going to bring that up.
So then, of course, we get to the actual premiere itself, and again, like this is the mixed thing where again, there's like you feel for these people who really put their heart and soul into the piece.
Absolutely, and it's almost like Disney's daring you to talk bad about this at this point.
And like they're saying, like they have this nice moment, where, like, hey, look at the person. I believe they're in like the cast and crew screen, like before they do like the world premiere. It's like, hey, look at the person next to you and hold their hand. And it's like they really cared about this. That's a sweet sentiment. Of course, they're walking the red carpet. You have like the kids dressed up like Anna and Elsa, and then of course I believe the girls from the D23, maybe like another set of like really great fangers did their own cosplay. The point being, it's a nice sentiment. And then here's the thing that kind of says everything about the kind of the puff piece nature of it all here. I'm going to get into what I wanted it to be. So it's we have the musical phenomenon that is Into the Unknown, which basically this is where we take kind of something pure with Into the Unknown, and then we do like the whole global sensationalization, like it's dubbed in every country, and then of course like it was the most successful, highest grossing animated film of all time now, and it's
a mention of the tomato meter.
Yep, and of course, like again, it's at the end of the day, it's like they're going for a nice sentiment, but it's definitely it's a little fluffy on the ending for sure. It's definitely a fluffy piece, most assuredly. Again, I'll say this, and then we'll get to our final thoughts here. Again, at the end, I would have respected the heck out of this of this ending if it was the aftermath of just someone point blank saying that we did our best. It's not everything landed. Like, and they don't. I'm not saying they have to be like scathing or like turn like a whole like microscope thing. Like, this is what the critics said, but it's like just acknowledging briefly.
They don't have to go full Schumacher and apologize.
Yeah,
Of course
sure,
not.
sure. No, like just for them saying, like, you know what, we did, maybe not everything landed with the audience as a whole, but as we hoped. But under the circumstances, like the Frozen phenomenon, the uncharted waters of it all, this is what we got, and we like it. So it's basically saying we like it. So.
Bittersweet.
That's what I'm saying. I think that would have been like I would have been really. I would have respected the heck out of them without them getting like, we could have done better, but no, like, you know what? It's what it is, and we liked it, and we were in kind of uncharted waters. It's what it is.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right. So, final thoughts from me. I mean, like I said, it's not that this is bad or what.
Ditch the banner.
Sorry. All right. Got it.
You got it. Okay.
It's not that this is a bad or poorly produced docuseries, but I do think that by doing the fly on the wall style, just for me, it loses a little bit of momentum. A lot of stuff really is pretty repetitive. We see a lot of the making of stuff is pretty jumbled throughout. It does have a strong through line of, like, will we finish the production on time? And you get to know the production crew pretty well. And I do have kind of a new professional crush on Jennifer Lee because, my God, that woman is just a workaholic in the best kind of way, and I respect the hell out of her for it.
I love her character too, by the way, in back of her. It's really adorable.
Right. But yeah, overall, Dragon, I think this thing had potential. It wasn't as much of a fluff piece as I thought it would be from beginning to end. It definitely acknowledged some issues that Frozen had, but unfortunately, unlike real life, this documentary kind of just waves a magic wand and those issues just sort of magically go away. And that's not how it kind of turned out in real life. So I just looked up the tomato meter. The tomato meter's 76%, Dragon. So it's not like this thing it wasn't hated by critics, but it wasn't beloved by critics either, So I don't know. I just feel like it's disingenuous to just hype up how much money this thing made and not even touch on the fact that the reaction was divisive. I don't know.
And again, folks, I want to make it clear, so this also kind of cover both of ourselves here. It's a little mini shield, if I may. Again, folks, I don't want it to sound like we're really splitting hairs. Like, 75% is not good enough. I want to make it clear, right? It's the fact that there was just such a phenomenon about the thing, and again, it's in the selling of it. It was just something that was just it's like you come out of the movie, you just feel like it wasn't all it could have been. I didn't come out with the same feeling I had with the first Frozen movie, and again, it's no. I say this because of the whole production angle of it all. Like, Toy Story 2 is like the tightest knit production ever made. Like, that thing, like, it came out like right out the door, like the last seconds. Where this is kind of going for that thing. I think just in the showing of like while they're down to the wire, I mean, they put out a result that they got out there. I mean, these guys, they put in the effort, they put in the hard work, but it's no Toy Story 2, and I think it's it's not in the ballpark of like being compared to being good as or better than the original.
All right.
I think it's for a reason. Okay, so.
Before we go, Claude, I was actually going to ask this question anyways, Dragon. So why don't we get to it? Claude Karinga asks, what other Disney movie do you think could get a documentary series? Dragon, I'm going to set the parameter here. I'll go first because I've already picked them out. I want you to think about it. I want one docuseries based on a hit movie, and then one docuseries based on a flop. So I'll go first. My hit movie that I want to see a docuseries for is a Goofy movie. And I want to see them kind of like split it down the middle where half of it is a really thorough, like documentary, like, making of essentially like they would do back in the day for, for stuff like Aladdin and The Lion King and stuff like that. Give it that kind of treatment. Really dive into the making of that thing. And then the other half of Goofy movie that I really want to see explored in the docuseries is the fan culture surrounding a Goofy movie. I think it'd be kind of like a really interesting. I think Goofy movie has one of the more interesting fan bases in the Disney canon. And in terms of flop, my God, Dragon, I'd love to see a documentary on the Black Cauldron.
Well, oh boy, hate being on the spot like this, but I mean, a couple ideas I do have off the top of my head. I mean, honestly, something about the whole Star Wars culture would be really interesting if they did something like on a Solo or a Last Jedi or the whole, the breach of the Hold. They'll never do it, obviously.
That's the people versus George Lucas territory.
That's what I'm saying. I know that's what I'm saying.
Ground.
That's what I'm saying.
The people versus George Lucas have a lot to work with right now.
now you bring that up, Tiki. It does kind of occur to me now. Like, I wonder if maybe that's been the roadblock. Maybe Disney just won't let them do it. Maybe that's why we haven't gotten a second one.
I mean, that'd be a shame.
I know it would be a shame. I'm just anyway. Well, honestly, one thing I was going to pitch in my final thoughts a little bit was, a good dinosaur would be a really fascinating subject of like kind of like that soul.
Yeah, for sure.
See, there's this document you've seen. It's called The Sweatbox, the thing about the original version of the Emperor's New Groove. Basically, like that's kind of what they could do something like that, but for the good dinosaur, where it's like you have, like basically it would be like a version of this, but you have like a better subject where you would have an authentic look at the process of the animation process, the changes and the changes that get made and the results that basically you can be proud of, but by the same token, it's like it's not what you imagine it to be, and it kind of leads to the lingering questions. Like, I knew this could have been more, but we went through so much in the production of this. Like, the troubled production documentary on The Good Dinosaur could be really interesting because you say what you will, A Good Dinosaur. Again, Cars 2 may be a little bit more difficult to pull off. A Good Dinosaur is like really right.
They'll never do Cars 2 because of Lasseter, man. They're never going to touch Cars 2.
That's what I'm saying. I think The Good Dinosaur would be like the perfect ground for like maybe a little bit of Brave. I think Good Dinosaur would be perfect right in the middle. Be like, because again, it's a movie. It still has a lot. Again, it lives up to the namesake. It is good.
I feel like Brave has like gender politic issues that The Good Dinosaur doesn't.
That's what I'm saying. In terms of like the one that underperformed, I would say like Good Dinosaur would be kind of would be the one I'd be interested in seeing. I mean, in terms of
I've got 3 words for you. All right, you ready?
What do you got?
Mars needs moms.
Like, here's the thing: it just feels so unlike a Disney. I always forget it. For a moment, I always forget about Mars Needs Moms.
I've never seen it. I can barely stand looking at it. But my God, I'm sure the production of that thing is fascinating.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, actually, who might make a really interesting documentary subject. I know you're going to roll your eyes at this. I finished this book recently. Iger.
Oh, no, I'm not going to roll your eyes at you finishing his book. I've heard that's a really good book. I've been meaning to get around to reading that.
No, what I mean is like them doing a docu-series on Bob Iger based on his book.
Potentially.
It was a really good book, man. It was a really good story. That's what I'm saying. Anyway.
All right, now we're just trailing off into specific docu-series content. So the sky's the limit with docu-series for Disney Plus, and I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think docu-series in general are kind of the secret bread and butter to Disney Plus, whereas we thought they were going to be like these high production original shows like the Mandalorian and the Marvel content that obviously isn't coming out nearly as quick enough, when Voldemort, COVID being the reason. These docu-series can I mean, they're cheap to produce, they're easy to produce, and genuinely for the hardcore Disney fans like us, they are the sort of exclusive content that we want to see. So I'm all on board for Disney Plus, just going full tilt with these docu-series. I want to see more of them.
Sure.
I'll watch any one they put out.
A success example, by the way, Toy Story 4, that'd be a great story to see. Because I'd be on the edge of my seat like, oh, God, they're doing all these gutsy moves. How is that ever going to work? But so I guess final thoughts from me for the whole thing we did get. Again, so I think the first half's more promising than the back half for sure. Again, basically by the time we get to 5, especially 6, we're kind of losing momentum for sure. It's no Imagineering story or Disney Gallery Mandalorian, but again, it's not bad. It's a different creature in itself as well. You also have to bear in mind, as I said before, it's a very different creature. Unlike these are docu-series are very different from each other in terms of style. As Tiki said, fly on the wall, very different. But, in terms of setting a tone for the docuseries on the making of a film, basically this kind of sets the tone going forward for this type of documentary. I think it's a baby step. It's getting there. I think it made some strides. I think it scratched the surface. If it goes deeper going forward, it could really work for them. I really do. It's got something there. I just wish they kind of like drove it home a little bit more. It's like you can at the end of the day, you can only work with a document. You can only work a doc like this with the subject that you're given, what you're given subject-wise. And if your endings ending is like massive success with like one with really like, when you focus on really one of the speed bumps, that takes the drama out of the story. I think that's kind of what the curse on the thing was for this by the end. Is like we just focused on the one story problem that again does kind of symbolize the movie, but again we have to really kind of interpret that to really get into like all the other things that kind of went wrong with it, which again it kind of we don't spend enough time on the rest of it. I had hoped that they were going to do something like the Sweatbox, which they didn't quite do, which is like, but again like obviously the Sweatbox, but more of a success story, like something in the vein of that, something that maybe could have worked or going forward could really work for them. They do something like that, like with a Black Cauldron, per your example, which could be really great, like a Sweatbox Tale and Black Cauldron would be fantastic. So I wish this series had like a Dan Scanlon like reality of like have like a Dan Scanlon reality. We love the guy for it. It has like this. It's unconventional but realistic ending where it's an honest evaluation, not what you expected, but it's about the journey and about like taking something positive out of the thing. Again, the bittersweet quality, as it were. This sidestep the negative points for notably in the end. I respect the end result. Just it reflects the film. It's a little it's not a slam dunk, but it's good.
All right. Well, folks, that'll do it for us until sorry, let me start that over. That'll do it for us this week as we holster our remotes till the next installment calls for the draw. Mano y mano, just Plus and Us.
Panic at the Disco.
Ah.